China's shipyards previously collaborated with Norway, but why did Norway unilaterally cancel a $13 billion order all of a sudden? This caused the Chinese shipyard to fall into a trap, and in the end it could only be in debt of $2 billion and to declare bankruptcy? Really? What is actually happening? Before we start today's video, please subscribe to our channel, which is the encouragement that we can create more videos. Okay, let's move on to today's video. In 1896, the coronation ceremony of the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II, took place in Moscow. Li Hongzhang, a prominent figure in the late Qing dynasty, attended the ceremony. At that time, Li Hongzhang had just suffered a humiliating defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War and subsequently signed the unequal Treaty of Shimonoseki, leaving him in an awkward position on the margins of power. Surprisingly, Tsar Nicholas II specifically requested Li Hongzhang to attend the ceremony in Russia and accorded him the treatment reserved for heads of state. The new Tsar's gesture was not driven by deep respect for Li Hongzhang, rather, he recognized the benefits that Li Hongzhang could bring him. Tempted by an offer of 3 million rubles, Li Hongzhang hastily signed the Sino-Russian secret treaty without consulting the Qing court, granting Russia privileges to construct railways in China. In 1898, construction began on the Middle East Railway, which would extend to the southern port city of Lushuan. That same year, the ship repair yard and shipyard of the Middle East Railway Company were established. These two facilities were the predecessors of Dachuan Heavy Industries, a subsidiary of China's Shipbuilding Industry Corporation. Dachuan Heavy Industries, also known as Dalian Shipbuilding Industry Offshore Company, Ltd., has made indelible contributions to the development of China's shipbuilding industry. It is a rare comprehensive enterprise encompassing 5 major industries: military, heavy machinery, shipbuilding, ship repair, and marine engineering. To this day, Dachuan Heavy Industries has built 820 warships of 45 different types for the Navy, holding a significant position in naval equipment. Both the Liaoning and Shandong aircraft carriers set sail from here. In 2006, Dachuan Heavy Industries and Maosheng Investment Company, Limited jointly invested in the establishment of Dachuan Marine Engineering. Since its establishment, Dachuan Marine Engineering has made breakthroughs in drilling platforms, liquefied gas carriers, FPSOs, and other fields, earning its place on the list of national high-tech enterprises and the white list of marine engineering companies. During that time, Dachuan Marine Engineering was thriving, with various high-tech orders pouring in. However, unbeknownst to them, along with the opportunities, risks were never absent. In 2013, Seadrill Limited, SDRL, a renowned Norwegian offshore drilling contractor, issued a public tender for the customization of 8 offshore drilling platforms, with a total value of 13 billion yuan. SDRL is a globally recognized offshore drilling contractor, with the well-known Norwegian shipping magnate John Fredriksen as its main backer. In Fredriksen's hands, there are more than 100 offshore drilling platforms of medium size and above, and as many as 140 large ships. There are 2 stories that are most talked about by him. One incident during the Iran-Iraq War stands out. Both sides imposed blockades on the Persian Gulf, causing fear among other oil tankers, which hesitated to enter the region. This led to a global oil crisis. Only Fredriksen's fleet dared to venture into the Persian Gulf, transporting oil out and alleviating the tense demand for petroleum. After this war, Fredriksen's net worth and reputation skyrocketed, solidifying his position as a shipping magnate. In contrast, another incident was less glorious. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine inherited not only the unfinished project of the future Liaoning aircraft carrier, known as the Varyag, but also an advanced design of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier named Ulyanovsk. This aircraft carrier had a full load displacement of 85,000 tons and could accommodate 70 various types of aircraft. It also followed the tradition of the Soviet Navy, possessing formidable anti-aircraft and anti-ship firepower even without aircraft on board. Ulyanovsk was capable of rivaling the American aircraft carriers of that time. Although it was already halted due to the Soviet Union's dissolution, the Americans still had concerns about it. When the Ukrainian government was hesitating whether to resume the construction of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, Fredriksen took the initiative and offered Ukraine an order for 6 large commercial ships. At that time, Ukraine was desperate for revenue due to financial difficulties. Such a large order naturally required immediate action. However, the tonnage of these 6 ships was too large, and only the dry dock that could accommodate the Ulyanovsk could hold them. With determination, the Ukrainian government sold this nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to an American shipbreaking company for the price of scrap metal. Just when everything seemed settled, and Ukraine eagerly anticipated the export earnings, Fredriksen suddenly cancelled the order. The losses suffered by the Ukrainians were unprecedented, while the Americans were relieved of their burden. The initial intentions behind Fredriksen's order offer can be easily surmised. Under normal circumstances, facing such a buyer, Dachauan Marine Engineering should have proceeded with extreme caution. However, at that time, the company was newly established and desperately needed such a major order to prove itself. Hence, in the heat of the moment, without considering any potential dangers, they proceeded without caution. As a result, at least 2 thunderbolts were embedded in the cooperation contract between the 2 parties. First, according to common practice, SDRL should have paid a minimum of 30% of the project funds in advance. Considering the significant difficulty of constructing the drilling platforms, it would have been reasonable to pay more. However, in reality, SDRL only promised to pay a 10% advance payment. Second, the contract stipulated that in case of any disputes, only the arbitration institution designated by SDRL would be involved. Dachauan Marine Engineering readily signed such a dominating clause, demonstrating the recklessness of its leadership. Once the project entered the construction phase, Dachauan Marine Engineering discovered that building the 8 drilling platforms was even more challenging than anticipated. The shipyard worked overtime, but progress remained slow. According to the contract, SDRL only paid an advance payment of 1.3 billion renminbi to Dachauan Marine Engineering. This amount quickly ran out, and Dachauan Marine Engineering had to bear the expenses on its own. When Dachauan Marine Engineering was established, its registered capital was only $95 million. Although it earned a considerable amount of money through other orders, it was still far from sufficient. By 2018, Dachauan Marine Engineering had completed more than half of the project engineering, and the delivery of the drilling platforms was imminent. However, at the same time, Dachauan Marine Engineering had invested over $3 billion in this project, with a significant amount of outstanding payments for outsourced projects. Since the signing of the contract, SDRL had been acting out of character and had never inquired about the progress of the project. This abnormal behavior not only failed to raise Dachauan Marine Engineering's vigilance but was instead seen as a display of mutual trust. In fact, the reason why SDRL showed no interest or concern was purely due to malicious intentions. Furthermore, due to fluctuations in oil prices and poor management, SDRL had fallen into a state of applying for bankruptcy protection and debt restructuring, leaving no time to attend to these 8 drilling platforms. Meanwhile, Dachauan Marine Engineering remained oblivious to the external news and remained focused on building the platforms. In June 2018, Dachauan Marine Engineering suddenly received a brief email from SDRL stating, "Due to business adjustments, we are canceling orders for 6 drilling platforms." Chaos erupted within Dachauan Marine Engineering. After failed negotiations with SDRL, they organized a group of excellent lawyers to initiate legal proceedings. However, according to the original contract requirements, the litigation could only be resolved by the Norwegian court, the home country of the shipowner. Despite the lawyers' best efforts and the collection of substantial favorable evidence, SDRL successfully terminated the orders without bearing any responsibility. When the shipbreaking company, Ascending Shipbuilding, heard about the crisis of the shipbuilding company and requested property preservation from the court, the shipbuilding company's total assets were 16.74 billion renminbi, while its liabilities amounted to a staggering 18.66 billion renminbi. It was insolvent, unable even to pay the 8 million renminbi in labor fees owed to Ascending Shipbuilding. The disclosure of this information, brought to light through the litigation initiated by Ascending Shipbuilding, shocked the public. More and more creditors filed lawsuits in court. The shipbuilding company was burdened with a debt of about 2 billion renminbi. How would it cope? Fortunately, in 2019, 7 state-supported enterprises stepped in simultaneously to assist the shipbuilding company after its bankruptcy and restructuring, turning the situation around. Since President Obama's second term in 2013, the United States has been shifting its strategic focus from the complex and chaotic quagmire of the Middle East to the East Asian region. President Obama even put forward the so-called Asia-Pacific rebalance strategy to facilitate the shift of the U.S. strategic focus to the east. If we revisit the dispute between the shipbuilding company and the Norwegian company, we can easily observe some astonishing similarities between the timing of crucial events and U.S. foreign policy. The crisis faced by the Norwegian company was triggered by the surge in international crude oil prices in 2014, precisely when the Obama administration vigorously implemented the Asia-Pacific rebalance strategy. The shipbuilding company was not just an ordinary commercial shipyard, it had its roots in the defense industry. The purpose behind the U.S. actions was obvious: to hinder and slow down the growth of the Chinese Navy as much as possible. In other words, the U.S. could not allow China to continue building aircraft carriers. Hence, it is evident that the U.S. began suppressing Chinese enterprises during the Obama administration. During President Trump's tenure in 2017, the U.S. openly escalated its suppression of China, starting with the trade war and followed by sanctions and pressure on Huawei and ZTE. The competition between China and the U.S. has now reached a stage of fierce confrontation. When we re-examine the dispute between the shipbuilding company and the Norwegian Ship King from this perspective, it is not difficult to see that the shipbuilding company's experience was a precursor to the later crackdown on Huawei and ZTE by the United States. On the surface, it appeared as a dispute between the shipbuilding company and the Norwegian company, but in essence, it was a competition and game between China and the United States. Well, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions, just leave them in the comments section. We'll come back as soon as possible and check them, and then we'll give feedback. See you next time.